Good morning, students. Now we come to the end of this chapter on food group and nutrition, and we have to revise and have a good look at what is a balanced diet. A balanced diet for any individual, whether somebody who's young or old, can be defined as one which contains different types of food in such quantities and proportions that the need for calories, minerals, vitamins, and other nutrients is enough, and a small provision for extra nutrients is made for short duration of leanness. That means so that you don't put on fat. So if we explain this definition, we can say that it is a diet which includes the different food groups, that is, the first food group, cereals, grains, and products. The second food group, which will include pulses, legumes, and nuts. The third food group to be included is milk and meat products, followed by the fourth food group, fruits and vegetables, and lastly, fats and sugars, in the correct proportion, which will provide enough calories for an individual to perform his daily physical activities, as well as there should be enough energy for the body to undergo the process of metabolism. So, along with these food groups, we must include a good quantity of minerals, vitamins, and other nutrients in small amount. And this balanced diet must not make a person obese or fat. He ought to be lean. The diet should be made in such a manner that the person does not put on weight. It should provide the body with enough nutrients, but at the same time not excess nutrients, which will make a person put on weight. So we come to the conclusion that a balanced diet must include the first food group, that is cereals, grains, and products. The second one, pulses and legumes. The third one, milk and meat products. The fourth, fruits and vegetables. And the last group, that is fats and sugars, along with minerals, vitamins, and other nutrients. So there is a guide as to how much of a good diet should be. So a balanced diet is different for different people, not the same for all individuals. It depends on age. Age factor is very important because the adolescent has to have more nutrients to meet his growing needs. Little children generally have lower nutrient demands compared to the elderly, like your grandparents and at home, who don't need so much of nutrients. Secondly, the balanced diet depends on physiological conditions. That is, how much of nutrients is being supplied by the balanced diet will depend on the health condition of the person. Large quantities of nutrients are required by a mother who's pregnant and about to deliver a child in comparison to other individuals whose body may not require so much of food nutrients. Physical activity or occupation amounts for variations in the balanced diet, yes. Here again, we find that there are some people who have to undertake heavy work of physical activity. In that case, they need to have a diet which includes more of energy giving food in comparison to another person who does not have any physical activity, or who has less of physical activity. Like an elderly person or a person going to office will definitely need less of energy giving food. Then the balanced diet also depends on whether you are a male or a female, because male members need more of nutrients. The physiology, the body build-up is such that they need more of nutrients in comparison to women. Climatic conditions also affect the balanced diet. Like we find that individuals consume higher calorie foods in winters compared to summers, because the more of higher calorie food is essential in winters, as it will give the body more heat and warmth in comparison to summers where the body does not need much of heat. Then next is economy. How economical is the diet? Every person has to buy food within his limited budget. And when they have to buy food within their limited budget, we find that they will only pick on those food items which is which is at a lower cost. So what we find is that, for example, if you want to have proteins in a low budget, you need not go in for expensive cheese, fish. You can substitute it with soya bean, which is much cheaper. So in this way, it can be planned out. The balanced diet will be planned according to the adult man, woman, the physical activity to be conducted, and so on. Now, the last part of this chapter deals with basal metabolic rate, or BMR. So let us see what is this basal metabolic rate, or BMR. It is the rate of energy which is expenditure per unit time by endothermic animals at rest. So to begin with, you must have studied in biology in your junior classes who are the endothermic animals. Endothermic animals means those animals who are warm-blooded, whose body temperature remains constant, that is the mammals. So how much energy is required by the mammals so that they can generate enough body heat in themselves and the body temperature remains constant. So for this reason, what we find is that in winters, as you know, in winters, cold-blooded animals go off to sleep, that is hibernation, while warm-blooded animals generate energy in their body from the food that they eat. So this is BMR. Metabolism comprises the processes that the body needs to function. The basal metabolic rate is the amount of energy per unit of time that a person needs to keep the body functioning at rest. Now, there are certain physiological functions taking place within our body even when we are at rest. These are breathing, blood circulation, controlling body temperature, cell growth, brain, nerve function, contraction of muscles are some of the physiological functions which is taking place in our body when we are at rest. That means energy is required by the body for the functioning of these factors in our body, though we may not be moving around. So the basal metabolic rate affects the rate that the person burns calories and ultimately whether the individual maintains gain or loss in weight. Now, what does this mean? If we consume more calories than is needed for the metabolism processes in our body, then the body adds calories and the person will put on weight. On the other hand, if the metabolism process is fast, that is breathing, blood circulation and all, we consume a lot of energy, in that case, we find that the person will become thin. So the basal metabolic rate accounts for about 60 to 75% of the daily calorie expenditure by individuals. It is influenced by several factors. Let's see those factors. The factors which will be responsible for this is, that is, how much energy or calories of heat energy is required for maintaining the body temperature, generally more in winters. According to that, the food intake, that is how hungry we are, that will also be another factor. Then the functioning of the thyroid gland is a very important factor as to how much will be the energy requirement of the body. Because if the thyroid gland functions too much, it has got a hyper function, that means is consuming a lot of energy, then definitely BMR falls. The basal metabolic rate will be affected and the person becomes thin. So in this way, what we find is that this is how we can find that these are the certain factors which is affecting the basal metabolic rate. That is the amount of energy needed by the endothermic animals, including the human beings, so that proper metabolic functions may be conducted in the human body even when the person is at rest. So with this, we finish this chapter. I'll be sending you the notes very soon. After that, we will move on to the next chapter in our next class. Thank you.